92, Big 550. KTRS. So the open enrollment begins tomorrow for the Affordable Care Act. Joseph Antos, William Taylor Scholar in the Healthcare Policy at the American Enterprise Institute. Good morning, Joseph. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
So premiums going up. The administration says don't worry about it because your subsidies are going to go up and you won't see that big of a difference. True or false?
Well, if you are very low income, you're going to see an increase in your premiums. You're going to see an increase in your subsidies. But on balance, your premiums, the premiums you have to pay are going to go up. There's just no getting around that.
I find it interesting. I'm not on the Affordable Care Act. Our premiums are going up in our business. Premiums are going up even if you're not in the Affordable Care Act. So what's the complaint? Everyone's premiums go up every year for the last 20 years.
Absolutely. Premiums go up every year, and they go up faster than our wages. They go up faster than the economy. Healthcare is an exploding area and has been for a long, long time. I think the problem is the promise. The promise was, at least a lot of people thought that the promise was affordable health insurance. And what they thought that meant was the kind of health insurance that the middle class have at essentially no cost. Well, that's a fantasy, and it didn't happen.
Well, yeah, I'd like a big screen TV at little cost, too, but that's beside the point. What about young people? They say young people aren't signing up and that they would rather pay the fine than actually sign up. Are we seeing that?
Well, if they actually pay the fine, that remains to be seen, but it's absolutely true. Young people are not signing up, but the Affordable Care Act gives them a huge out. If you're under 26, you can stay with your parents' plan. That's the definition of young and healthy. They would be crazy to sign on to the exchange plans. They're doing the right thing for themselves. The policy is wrong.
How should we change the policy? Should we tweak it? Should we get rid of it? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't see us fully repealing it, not without major changes. The fact is that Republicans who support repeal and replace, the replace plans leave certain things alone. They leave the under 26 alone. They include subsidies for people, low-income people, which we didn't have before. They obviously include that if you have a pre-existing condition, you can buy insurance regardless of what your health status is. So those things are going to stay, but we could see some other changes. We need to reduce the regulations. We need to make it possible for insurance companies to tailor the policies to their actual customers rather than tailoring the policies to what the Washington elite thinks you need.
But if you curtail a package to me, all right, let's say when you buy car insurance, you don't buy car insurance. Well, only if I get on an accident on the highway, right? You buy car insurance for everything. So can you buy health insurance? Can you pick and choose? And what happens if you get something that you didn't choose? What happens then?
Well, the kinds of things that I'm thinking about are, for example, maternity benefits for 50-year-old men. They're probably not going to use maternity benefits. That's a guess. But the kind of, insurance is insurance. People should be covered for their very expensive treatments, regardless of what the treatment is. But for the smaller stuff that is frankly optional or in many cases unnecessary, insurance shouldn't be covering that. We really need to go to a system where people realize that they're spending their own money for these things and they are informed so they can decide what makes sense for them in conjunction with their doctor.
What about forcing people to buy health insurance? Do you see that sticking around?
Well, depends on the outcome of the election. If a certain lady becomes president, the force might be with us, yes.
But for those who don't want to force people to have insurance, isn't it true that if you take away the pre-existing conditions, then the day after I get diagnosed with cancer is the day I buy insurance? That the whole system will collapse if that's allowed to stand.
Well, that's true unless you make some other changes. So one idea that people have talked about, which I think would work, would be to say, okay, you have to remain continuously covered. It doesn't mean you have to buy Cadillac coverage. You can buy basic coverage. But if you do not remain continuously covered, then you will pay higher premiums if you come down with something. If you get a disease, in other words, that you weren't counting on having, and you decided to run the risks. That's the kind of thing that you go a few years out, and basically the entire population will get the idea that, yes, I have to buy insurance, it makes sense, but I don't have to spend $15,000 this year to buy really expensive coverage. If I'm 27 years old, I can buy a cheaper plan. That's not possible right now.
Joseph Antos, with the American Enterprise Institute. Joseph, thank you for your time. Good stuff.
Thank you.
The open enrollment begins tomorrow. The Affordable Care Act, healthcare.gov, 758. Big